Welcome to PTI, sir, on Budget Day. So what are your initial thoughts on the budget? The budget we just fought over, your initial impressions, your comments?
I think by recent year standards, it was a fairly short speech and seemed to have lots of subheadings and very few specifics. So it's very difficult to know what to think. I mean, I saw some big picture issues are that there's nothing there that we could hear for the middle class and the lower middle class. There was nothing there for the states. In fact, fiscal devolution remains unchanged at 41%. And many states have been complaining they don't have enough money to fulfill their own obligations to their citizens, to their voters. And that has become a genuine concern. There were very, very few details on things like what's going to be where. So we in Kerala, for example, have been waiting almost 15 years for an All India Institute of Medical Sciences. No announcement came. There was a reference to All India Institutes of Ayurveda being established, but not any indication as to where. Kerala would imagine that as a major center of Ayurveda, it should be a logical place, but they haven't promised us that. In fact, I think Kerala only got mentioned in the context of rare earths and a turtle trail. Even when coconuts and cashews were talked about, the state wasn't mentioned. So I'm assuming that some of these subheadings, as I mentioned, that she talked about, will translate into concrete projects and programs for us. And certainly cashews are important, fisheries are important. But where details came, we had reason for disappointment. For example, the ship repair for inland waterways, they're parking them in Varanasi and Patna. Kerala has 44 rivers and so many inland waterways that should be a priority for development. Why was Kerala not mentioned in that context? So I've got a lot of these questions and concerns about that. And on the larger issue of where the country is heading, the biggest question remains jobs. There was very little saying that we're going to be generating jobs through this or that. I know there were certain schemes suggested for improving manufacturing. And so far, as you know, the prospect of job increases has been quite elusive through any of the schemes that have come in so far. So we need to see something more that will encourage our young people in this country to believe that they have a future, they have work and possibilities to look forward to.
So what you're saying is that the details come in. If you just look at the budget speech, it was disappointing, and there was a lack of vision. You say?
Well, the speech certainly was completely short of an overall vision. What was it supposed to be about? Was it supposed to be proclaiming a new reform era? It didn't do that. Was it supposed to be performing some sort of belt tightening? It didn't say that. What was it all about? It was a series of subheadings, as I said, but there was no clear unifying vision. And I'm sorry to say that I hear very disappointing news from the stock markets with the Sensex crashing by several hundred points and or 1,000 points. And this is something which we all think is particularly troubling because you want there to be a certain buoyancy in the economy after a budget speech. I hope that the full detailed budget document will give us cause for reassurance because I didn't hear any in the speech.
So the Congress just a couple of days before the budget came out with a report and flagged that inequality is rising and also some welfare measures, the repeal of the Manrega, and so it suggested that welfare measures are being rolled back. So on those counts, how do you look at that?
Well, on inequality, there was no mention of it whatsoever in the budget speech. Welfare measures were not specified except for the reference to this Mahatma Gandhi Gram Swaraj Yojana. Now, what's interesting is they took away Mahatma Gandhi's name from the Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme and they applied it to another alleged sort of village development scheme. I'd like to see what exactly that transpires out and what kind of allocations it has. Some of these conversations perhaps need to await the full budget document, which obviously I haven't seen because I've just come out of Parliament having heard the speech. But as I said, I am not sure that she has paid attention to the kinds of things that normally voters and politicians pay attention to. For example, absolutely nothing for the middle class or the lower middle class that one could hear. If you look at even things like the Manrega scheme, or what now they want to call GRAMG, this GRAMG scheme, are they going to give it adequate amounts of financing? How are we going to ensure that people who are looking for jobs in the rural areas receive these jobs? There's just too much that is not there. And I suspect that in the budget debate in Parliament, a lot of us are going to be asking for a lot more specifics, unless, as I said, there's more provided in the document that we've heard in the speech.
So there are also concerns about India's trade. Now we've just had the India-EU FTA, but concerns loom large as we haven't been able to complete the deal with the US, and also the tariff issue is there with 50% tariffs on us. So how do you look at India's trade going from here? And
well, the US was our largest market, and that market has certainly been affected by the 50% tariffs. Uh, People have done various workarounds. I gather, for example, in the gems and jewelry industry, they're doing a lot of assembly in America. Some others are doing something else in the US. But that doesn't help us, it doesn't help India's export figures, and it doesn't help India's employment. So I don't know at this stage, unless some kind of accommodation can be found with the Americans, whether we will be able to recapture the chunk of the American market that we have lost. Conversely, the European Union could provide now the new biggest market for India. And certainly there's much to be enthusiastic about in the deal that was announced. But don't forget, it hasn't come into force yet. I had understood that all 27 countries of the European Union need to ratify it. I see the Commerce Minister made a statement saying that is not necessary. I think we'll have to wait to hear from the Europeans as to when and how this can come into force.
Another issue that is economically hitting us hard is the oil issue. Now, US has been pressuring India over not buying oil from Russia. In fact, just yesterday, Mr. Trump has made a statement that India will buy oil from Venezuela instead of Iran. So how do you look at that issue?
Well, look, I mean, the oil market in the world, as you know, is what it is. There's a certain amount of demand which keeps growing every year, and there's a certain amount of supply which is certainly affected by sanctions. Now, we had a situation where Venezuelan oil, Iranian oil, and Russian oil are all sanctioned by the West. And it becomes very difficult for companies to purchase oil that is sanctioned, because then they will themselves be sanctioned by the same countries. And they have other business interests, naturally, so they will not want to proceed in that way. Now, I remember saying to friends about 8 months ago, when we were hit with the 50% on Russian oil, that it seems to me that the only way out for the US is going to be to somehow do something in Venezuela, because these are the three big sources of oil. And if all three are sanctioned, the inevitable result will be that the existing amount and rising amount of demand will be approaching a finite supply, and the result will be oil prices will go up. And if oil prices go up, that will have consequences for the American voter at the petrol pump, or the gas station, as they call it in America. So I thought that Venezuela would be the answer, and it looks like that's what it's going to be. If Venezuelan oil coming into the world market without any sanctions anymore becomes a compensatory factor for the absence of Iranian and Russian oil, then obviously what will happen is that prices will remain stable. And from the point of view of Indian companies, especially the older refineries which are able to process this heavier Venezuelan crude, they will probably want to indeed purchase Venezuelan oil instead. So this may well happen. It's something that I'm sure the oil industry has been expecting to see happening as soon as that particular decapitation of the Venezuelan regime happened. So I'm not surprised at all.
So just last couple of questions. The elections to 5 states are just round the corner, and your state is also going to the polls.
Which is why I was surprised not to hear my state mentioned more often.
On that count, how do you see the budget? And especially a sub-question to that would be that as a person, as an MP from Kerala, are you disappointed with the budget?
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is, very, very much so. As I mentioned, this was a speech that was so short on specifics. It was also short on the kind of couplets from Thiruvananthapuram we got used to hearing, not only from Nirmala ji, but even from the Prime Minister and other leaders, the Vice President and others, who used to love quoting Thiruvananthapuram. Here is an election opportunity in Tamil Nadu a few months away. No Thiruvananthapuram in the speech. I was a bit surprised. As far as Kerala is concerned, yeah, we had, as I said, no references to us, even though there were subheadings about fisheries, about cashew and coconuts, which may benefit us. We assume it should benefit us, but we have not yet seen, and certainly Kerala wasn't named. I don't want to say right now I'm disappointed until I see the full details. If Kerala will benefit in a substantive way from all of this, then perhaps it won't be so bad. We didn't get the All India Institute of Medical Sciences we've been waiting for so long, and we didn't get any specific assurance that one of the new All India Institutes of Ayurveda will come to us. So what did Kerala get? Not clear. The only thing I can say is if the budget document will specify some of these details, we might welcome it. If not, then this government will certainly have disappointed a lot of people who were waiting expectantly in Kerala. There are many sectors that the government could have attended to in Kerala. Port-led development is an obvious one. Rare earths was mentioned. Fisheries is extremely important. Protection of the coastal belt and livelihoods of people in the fishing community, not mentioned. All of these things could be important areas. Inland waterways were mentioned, but Kerala was not. The ship repair facilities for inland waterways are going to be in Patna and Varanasi. Strange. We have more inland waterways than perhaps any other state in India. We need to have that kind of facility in Kerala. So as a Kerala MP, I must say I have nothing to be happy about in this budget.
Sir, you mentioned it so many times that do you think there was a lack of transparency in the speech?
Well, I think there was a lack of detail in the speech, certainly. And when you speak of transparency, the government should come up front as to what exactly it hopes to achieve. You know, normally there is one big headline coming out of it. Last year it was the tax. The year before that, fiscal consolidation, whatever. You come back with a specific headline and say, this is what the overall thrust of the budget is about, and here are the details. I don't get a clear headline out of this. You guys are journalists, I'm not. I'd be curious as to what the headline will be. I fear the headline is going to be market crashes after hearing the speech.
So it's cricket season, World Cup is round the corner, so I'll end with some cricketing analogy. Sir, has the Finance Minister hit it out of the park, or she's missed the ball completely and been stumped?
Well, I don't know if she's been stumped yet, but she certainly seems to have missed the ball. In one or two places she may have got edges, but I'm not quite sure that we've got anything off the meat of the bat so far.